everybody. I'm John Lockwood. I'm the IT guy, okay? So if you have some IT questions, that's who's leading it at DLA. Our IT department is leading this effort and working with our customers in finance and other areas in order to build RPA products and deliver. Am I supposed to click a slide? There we go. Next slide, please. I didn't. Oh, okay, thank you. There we go. So you've heard a lot about bots today. One thing I like to describe is words here, because words do mean things, and bots mean a lot of different things to different people. We talk about bots in the UiPath world. You have a server, which is a bot, and that's the engine that does the work. We also have what we call user cases. Those are the processes you're automating. We also call them bots too. So when we talk through this, you got to think about, well, what do you really mean by the word bot, and how are you using it? All right. So far, we're working on processes, or what we call user cases, and automating them. That's the main thing we're doing today. We're taking existing processes, and you've seen other people talk about this, and replacing them with use cases and automating them. Those use cases probably take about 200 hours to build. That's our baseline. About 200 man hours to build a use case. Saves hundreds or thousands of hours each year, right? You build it once, and it's each year it's saving. So you can see that ROI. But that's what we're doing today. So we can identify that cost benefit. We're also coming up and saying, hey, we need to do this process, John, and we need to hire like 10 people to do it. Can your bots do it instead? And we say yes. So that's not cost savings, that's a cost avoidance, right? So that's building those new processes that should cost or cost avoidance. We're doing that today, all right? We're also looking at, are there things that we always wanted to do, but just too many resources would take? Hundreds of people, let's say, and there's no way we're going to do that. Well, can bots do and execute some processes, some ideas that we would never do because of resources? And we're looking into that as well, right? And this is my challenge, everybody. What else? The first two are pretty easy. I think everyone gets that. But what else can bots do? And I don't think we're going to know for months, a year, 5 years down the road. We're going to be doing things that we never thought about today. And that's an exciting part. How do we do this at DLA? Okay, we're building use cases. We have about 20 working right now. We have about 30 in the hamper, and by the end of FY19, September, we're going to have 75 online. Okay? So when someone comes up with an idea, we go into our sprint analyst phase. They come up with an idea, we get them every day, and I say, okay, two things we need to answer here. One is, can the bot do this? Can RPA do it? Is it feasible? Sometimes we can only do 75%. But that 75% is the heavy lifting part. All right? Then the second part is, do we want to do it? Some people come up to me and say, hey, I really want to do this because this will save me 20 hours a year. Well, sorry, just saving you 20 hours a year is not a good ROI. But it's saving 20 people 20 hours a year, then we have a good ROI. So that's why, should we do it, right? Once we get into that and we decide, okay, now we're going to do it, we go into a design phase. We look, and this is where that great keynote speaker talked about continuous process improvement, looking at your process. When we go into the design phase, we find out a lot of times that process isn't probably as clean as they think it is, because the bot needs to do step by step by step, no interpretation, right? So we actually improve some of these processes and we flow them out, put a flow chart together, outline the whole thing, do what we call a technical design document where everyone can look and see what the design of the bot will be. And then I have the customer, or what we call the process owner, sign it off. Do you agree that this is the process you want us to automate? And then I sign it off, so we have that good partnership. Right? Takes about 2 weeks, what I call a standard bot. Right? It takes about 2 weeks of development, build, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes, if they're a little bit more complex, we may do part A, part B, part C, and do further development sprints. After that development, we're testing it, right? So if you're an IT guy and you're wondering, is this agile, is this waterfall? It's kind of a hybrid, is how we're looking at it. But the key is we're working with the customer every week. We're constantly connecting back and forth. So our design isn't, we're not going into a closet for 2 weeks and coming back and saying, did we get this right? We're with the customer every time, asking questions a couple times a week. We go through the testing phase. Does this process work? Is this what you intended it to do? Does it answer the mail? Okay. Testing is critical, but it doesn't end with testing. We move into a production phase, meaning from an IT perspective, we have in our test environment. We move it over to our production environment. And when we do that, we're asking the customer, when do you want us to run it? Because UiPath has this thing called an orchestrator management tool, which manages the bot once it's built. Tells us, do you want to run it at midnight on Tuesdays? Do you want to run it every midnight? Do you want to wait till you get an email that says, basically, start the bot? Do you want to wait till that file shows up, that spreadsheet shows up on a SharePoint site, and that kicks off the bot? So Orchestrator helps us manage it, and we have to coordinate with our customer to make sure we understand when we want to run the bot, and then what we expect to get out of it. And also, are there any reports? Is there any information we expect from that? We'll move this into production. And one of the key things that I'm going to make a pitch for UiPath training. It's the first thing I did. And I require every single person in my group to go through the UiPath training right away. They can do it online. If they're a business analyst, there's a business analyst path. If they're a developer, there's a developer. And we track it. And I make sure that they do that training because we need to be on the same page as a team, right? So we go through what's called a gold week right after we go through production. Monitoring those bots closely to make sure they're actually performing what the customer wants. The bots don't have much variability to them. They're going to perform how you tell them to perform. But you need to make sure that's what the customer's expecting. Okay, so it's kind of a further second level test. And I think that's pretty key. It's pretty key for this number one reason is why we're doing it, to make the customer comfortable. They need to sit there and go, you know, I'm confident that that bot is doing what I think it was going to do. And you want that to happen right away. This process takes about 8 weeks from beginning to end. Sometimes with the analyst phase, we wait to start, but from the design to the end of production, end of the gold week, about 8 weeks. When was the last time your IT department told you they were going to deliver something in 8 weeks? Right? And that's a little bit different for IT because we're used to delivering an application that's going to deliver one specific thing and it's going to take time. Here, it's a production. We're constantly delivering. We're delivering bots every 2 weeks. We're starting bots every 2 weeks. It's a production run. It's a factory line. And it's a different way of thinking. It's a team effort. We talked about that. We go through a process. We ask them to fill out this questionnaire. That questionnaire is not meant to restrict people. It's just meant to fill out these basic questions so we can have a meeting and talk about it. So you can think about this before you come to the meeting. If you can't fill it all out, that's fine, because we're just going to talk about it. Get that kickoff meeting starting. All right? We have the analyst meeting, but the key is make sure that process owner, a lot of you are customers. I'm not going anywhere without my customer or my process owner saying they're involved and they're buying off on this. Because you need that ownership, much like you need that champion. But here on the specific bot, you need that owner. Okay? We're in the middle of doing governance because we started off kicking things going, making things happen. not waiting for governance or all the structure to be there. Don't overcomplicate the governance is my recommendation. It's an 8-week process. Don't take 8 months to get an 8-week process going. Okay. We are also communicating via workshops, going out to different parts of a DLA organization, sharing them. Here's what an RPA is, and let's talk about how it can help you. I'm going to go a little bit more in the unattended and attended bots, meaning why does this matter to us? And the key is we as a DoD organization and most of the federal government have things called CACs and PIV cards. And they have PKI technology. And to access a site, we need to use these cards. Well, so does the bot. The bot needs to use that technology too. And I'll talk more about that later. But with the attended bot, I'm on my computer using my access off of my CAC card. So when I want to touch base with the DLA Enterprise ERP system, I'm using John Lockwood's card that allows him to use his role for that system. Unattended bots is the bots have their own access, and the bots have their own certificates, and the bots can go and access these CAC-enabled sites in the middle of the night, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve at 1 a.m. The bots can do this work, okay? Because they do it 365, 7 days a year. That's 8,700 hours a year, vice 2,000 for an individual, all right? Bot has a name. We heard about Lincoln, Washington bots, and unfortunately at DLA, we're not very exciting. I had a whole system. Went with my group and said, how do we want to name these bots? And then the security people said, no, you can't name them with fake names because we're just going to delete it. So, they take all the fun out of it. So we have real technical names like Bot 1. And you know what the other one is? Bot 2. And those are the servers. These servers send out emails. I get emails from them. I can send an email to the bot. They have an email address. They have an EDI-PI. If you're a CAC, I'm not sure about PIV, but I'm sure you're the same thing. But in a CAC card, that number in the back, that's your number. So do the bots. They have that as well. They have an Active Directory account. Means they're part of our LAN system. I'm going to talk to you a little bit of architecture here. Now, this is meant for IT and program managers, but I'm the program manager. Che over there is the guy with the big head, and he understands all the details. So if I get it wrong, he'll throw something at me. But I'm going to talk to you from a program management perspective. This is our architecture, and it's on a cloud. We started off with UiPath Studio on laptops. And you can do that. You can do your proof of concept on a laptop. That's what we did. We built probably about 20 systems 20 use cases while we were building this architecture. So now we have the architecture mostly in place, and now we have 20 systems already developed. We didn't wait, okay? So when we look at this, sorry for a second. All right. When we look at this, we see this is mostly in a cloud, okay? Now over here, I have bot 1, bot 2, and bot 3. Those are the UiPath bot servers. That's what actually runs it. Off of the screen, we have what we would call your client or your DLA laptop, your laptop that runs Studio. You build the system, and then you send it and place it on those bots. And then we have Orchestrator there in the middle, okay? You see over here, I have a step here, so I can't get too close. But here, Orchestrator in the middle, that manages those bots, all right? Then we have other things. One thing that Orchestrator doesn't have a database, so we have to have a SQL database. So we had to connect it to our database to store that information, all right? We also have to connect it to Elasticsearch, which grabs that information, those logs, and manages that. And then we connect it to a system called Click. Another one is called Kibana. And that allows you to look and view reports. You're going to want the nice pie chart that shows you how much time and all the things that the bots are doing. That's what Click is going to do. So you're going to need these systems for a mature architecture. Your customer is going to want to have reports on what these processes are doing, when they're running, if they're failing, or things like that. So that's how a mature organization, a mature IT, or mature architecture is going to utilize these other capabilities. All right. We're sending other things from a TFS standard. That's where we store our code. It's kind of more internal IT things. We have all these lines. These lines aren't even beginning to show you all the lines we have. But we go through these DLA websites over here. Our F5 server, which is a fancy thing for a box that directs traffic. It goes to DLA websites and public websites. And public is a lot of times DoD, GSA sites, things like that. Well, there's going to be a bunch of firewalls, and we're constantly adding access to the firewall to open up the port to go to these sites, okay? I can't go to the GSA site unless I open up that port to go to the GSA site. So that's something that it's typical IT stuff we do all the time, but it's something we need to manage here, okay? That's about it for that architecture piece. I was talking to a gentleman in the back, and this is not rocket science. This is just the next step. Our IT stuff that we're doing here is the same thing we have been doing for years. It's connecting systems. We're using the same architecture. The DoD policy for robots works. There's no waivers we're asked for. There's no policy changes. What happens, though, with your IT department is they had a policy and they implemented it this way. Well, maybe we need them to implement it a little bit different. Not changing policy, but just a little bit of implementation changes, okay? Thank you. So this is an enterprise program. We look at this as a DLA IT. I'm here to support. I support my customers. But guess what? There's a bunch of IT stuff that we can do here too. All right? There's a lot of ways to save in the IT world with automation. But I'm supporting our finance, our acquisition, our operations group, our contracting group, trying to make contracting easier. We're actually doing Freedom of Information Act releases. Forms. Forms is a big thing. Automating forms. Guess who we're having sign the forms? The bot. Bot has a sign, digital signature on a PDF. All right. So we're all experiencing it, exploring these new territories of what can be done. But we have a couple challenges. And as we've gone through that architecture I showed you, our team has found out many a times that we put things in place that were anti-bot over the past 10 years. So we had to change these things. So it's a slow road. But I started in June of last year, so not even a year we've been going here. And in June of last year, when I started the program, I said two things I need to know about. One is we need to talk to the union, make sure our people are on board. Another one was the PKI, because we have to connect to these systems, right? Now, what we've done in the PKI world is the bot today, actually we have a CAC card for it, alternative token. We put it in there, and while that's in the system, that bot can actually go and work an unattended solution while that's in the system. Okay, we just got that accomplished 2 weeks ago. All right, so that's good. We're now at an unattended solution, only during the day, only 8 hours when someone's there because they have a security problem, and when they leave, they have to pull that card. Okay. Now, what that does is it's a secondary CAC reader, which allows the server to run the bot, but go to that CAC reader and get the credentials for the bot. It's bot credentials, bot one credentials. It's run in the background so that individual on that computer can still use their computer. Okay. Now, what we're looking at as a long-term solution, you'll see SafeNet in the back there. Talk to those guys. They have a little box that we're using that hardware security module as a solution. Because unfortunately, for the DoD, a software vault that handles credentials is not a high enough classification or is not high enough FIPS compliant to utilize. So we need a hardware solution at this time. Some people think we always will, but let's just say at this time we need a hardware solution. Now that hardware solution, we take the bot certificate, we make it a soft certificate, we just put it on the server, and then how does the bot do a PIN? That PIN on your CAC card, or I guess your PIV too, what it does is it releases what's called a private key. So the hardware security module holds that private key, releases that, and communicates to this CAC-enabled system that you're trying to connect to, and gives them the authorization that, yes, this is bot one, and here's the PKI certificate along with the private and public keys. All right. So our hardware security module, we think we're close to getting this solution, and SafeNet has been just absolutely fabulous at working with us, but we think we're about a month away. Okay, might be 6 weeks, might be 2 weeks, but it's all new technology, it's all new things, so every time we break down one wall, there's another wall that we may have to get over, but we're close. We're real close, and when we get this in place, we'll put out a white paper. So the rest of you can look at this technology. You don't have to reinvent it. Okay. Now, so you have a PKI solution, but you still have to get access. You still have to get that role for the bot. When I go into my ERP system, it knows John Lockwood has access to the role-based access credential, RBAC. It knows I can only access certain things. Makes it safe for segregation of duties. And that gets a little bit more complicated from a management piece. But that role needs to be requested for the bot. And the bot needs to have that role from that system and go through all the same processes, which if you use a form, it's a DD 2875. Go through those processes, get bot one to have access to the ERP system. So now when it connects, it uses its PKI certificate to say, I'm bot one. The system says, okay, you're bot one, and that means you can have this access. All right? So we're already there with a hard token, and we're almost there with a hardware security module. We have, this was a couple weeks old, so we have 11 processes that are being attended, and actually we have probably about 20 now that are attended. And there were what we call limited unattended, is where it's kind of a hybrid between attended and unattended, where they're using those hard tokens. We're moving everything over, so we'll probably have about 50 processes here in the next couple months in an unattended phase, and by the end of fiscal year, we're going to have 75. All right? And just for numbers, that's about 75. We probably did that with about $3 million total. Infrastructure, everything. That's fixed cost. Takes about 200 hours to build a bot, which is good to know. Okay. I don't know if you're concerned about audits, if you're in DoD, but audit is our priority. So we're focusing a lot on choosing audits, getting evidentiary matter over, saving thousands of hours for our auditors. Okay. One thing I wanted to add, though, people talk about being a citizen developer, going in and doing the development and then just dropping it off in J6's or IT's desk. We have found that you can do that to some degree, but mostly you need a standardized process. You need to build in resilience. So when you're building this in and all of a sudden that website's down, the system doesn't crash. The bot doesn't break. What the bot does is it tries again 10 minutes later. So there's best practices that we've developed, we have listed, we have documented, that we're building into our systems to ensure that there's resilience to help out these other not quite 100% effective and efficient other systems. Okay? So from an IT, I try to share some IT perspectives here. That's my brief. So you got any questions? Yes, sir.
So I see that audit obviously is a priority. And with audit being a priority, I guess my question is, sorry, I lost it for a second. Give me 1 second.
Okay, while you're thinking about it, let me mention something. This is really good for audits because it logs everything. So when I'm in there, going in my SharePoint, going to my spreadsheet, I'm just telling you that's what I did. I followed this process. The bot logs it all, so you can prove that's exactly what it did. So.
Okay. I got the question back in my mind. So how are you monitoring, obviously, the bots? Are you utilizing the scene tool to collect the data, or are you doing any additional monitoring than you would have normally for say, if it was done by individuals?
Well, first of all, after it's initially done, we do an initial monitoring, a golden week, and sometimes it's a little bit longer than a week because there's not enough bots running. So we do that initially until we and the customer are satisfied that we're confident it works well. Then after that, we're using the tool like Orchestrator to go in and monitor it and our logs. And to be honest with you, it's not mature enough to know exactly what we want to monitor, But we have you're right, I'm with you on that question. And the answer will be, what is it we need? And we're not 100% sure yet, but we know how to get it. Does that answer? So one back there. Next question.
Okay, sorry. Our infrastructure is a little bit backwards from what yours is. So we have Orchestrator in AWS, but our bots are running on-prem servers. So I have a couple questions. One is, have you considered moving Orchestrator to your Azure Web? And if so, and you haven't, why not? And also, have you seen any performance drops by running the bots on the cloud as opposed to on-prem?
So I'm sorry, let me rephrase something here. Orchestrator and the bots are all on the Azure cloud. Yes. SQL database is on the Azure cloud. The Elasticsearch and Qlik, I think, are on there too. I'm not 100% sure. So we're trying to put it all in that same enclave. We have not seen any performance hits because mostly when we're doing it from the laptop, it's just not designed. It's a development. So we're actually seeing probably cleaner performances. But to be honest, when I'm looking at a human taking 2,000 hours, and I'm looking at a bot doing it in 10 minutes or 8 minutes, I don't care. Yeah. So, but that's a good question, and I think we'll track that a little bit more. We're not mature enough to fully answer that yet. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just
and then we're going to go over here if you guys have.
Just follow up on what you just asked. I'm sorry, Chris. Have you done integrations as well, like with your internal systems? Or
we are connecting to our ERP system, and that's one of the main things we're doing.
Is on-prem? Is it on-prem? Your ERP systems?
It's on our DISA. It's our DISA network and our DLA network. Yeah. So it's our internal network, and that will be moving to the cloud as well. So we kind of look at the cloud as just generic commodity. Wherever it is, we're going to connect to it. It shouldn't matter.
Security concerns when you were going on cloud and then opening up the firewalls between your network?
Nothing related to RPA. The standard security things that we go through for any system is what we went through. Nothing specific with RPA, except for the PKI stuff I talked about. It's the cloud was FedRAMP qualified. So it needs to be FedRAMP qualified, yes. That's a going in assumption, and we didn't have to put that in place. But if If you're new trying to make that happen, then obviously you'd have to put that in place. But that was an assumption moving in.
Thank you.
Okay. Come over here.
Hi, I wanted to ask a question about the types of processes. You've given some very impressive numbers about the number of processes that are being automated for bot. And the other part of that is what allowed you to circumvent your governance board and what are your governing structure rather, and how are you going to use that in the future given the progress you've made so far?
Okay, we don't circumvent our governance board. Maybe we shorten it up. But I don't see any of my SESs in here, so I think I'm good there. And no, we're definitely not circumventing it. I would say that what we're doing is we're just doing it right now, and we're catching up the governance. Out of the first 30 that we went into, I was making the decision whether we went ahead. I was informing them, but now we're putting a more mature governance, in fact, because it's growing to the fact that we need that, right? If we waited to put the governance and all that stuff beforehand, I'd be a year behind, you know. And there was a second part to that question. Oh, what type of processes?
The types of processes that you're botting, I guess.
What? Botting. I like, that's a new one. Botting. I tell you, one of the big ones we're doing for the audit is evidentiary matter. Auditors ask for information. I want a screenshot. I want this data from your ERP system. So they put it on a spreadsheet. Our bot goes out to the SharePoint site that it's on that spreadsheet, grab that spreadsheet, looks, sees, obviously it needs to be in the right format, you know, clean format. Grabs that information, goes into our SAP ERP system, grabs that information or takes a screenshot, takes that file, that data, puts it back in that SharePoint repository for the auditors to look at. We're doing a lot of that, and that's pretty exciting. We're also onboarding new people. J1, our HR group, gives us a spreadsheet. Here's their information. Here's their, you know, a brand new person to DLA. Here's their, you know, we don't get the social, but here's their address, their, you know, their name, all that important stuff. The bot takes that spreadsheet and puts it into one of our systems. Where before, an individual would do it, and she's one of those people who's crying because she's so happy she doesn't have to do it. Here's what's interesting about that. HR never gives us that spreadsheet in the same exact format. You know, it's first name, last name, middle initial, last name, first name, middle initial, then last name. You know, each one's a little bit different. So we created a bot to get that spreadsheet and put it all in the same format. You know, it goes in there, cleans up the spreadsheet, and then takes that spreadsheet and puts it into our onboarding system. So those are a couple of the examples we're utilizing. I mean, we have more and broader pieces every day. And one thing that's neat is when we talk to people, they say, well, a bot can't do this. It's like, no, a bot can. And so then all of a sudden they said, I was self-limiting my suggestion for our use case to this. And now, wow, a bot can do that. One was, a bot can't read PDFs. Yeah, a bot reads PDFs all the time. Wow, that's a big increase. So we're learning too, more and more what a bot can do. Yes, sir. I'm creating bots in about 8 weeks.
So how long did it take you to get to the point where you could create bots in 8 weeks? So in terms of the infrastructure for T&D, production, and all that.
So there's two, good point. So there's two factors to that. One is to set up the infrastructure in the cloud where I did a full-blown test and all that. That took about 6 months, and that was fairly quick. But to be honest, we were doing most of it just on the studio software on a laptop, and it was just setting up processes. So that was kind of the 85-75% solution, and I would say in a month. You know, but then building the infrastructure for the more mature cases was building that IT infrastructure, which, well, actually we're not fully complete now, so I would say 9 months more. for that. But you can start off right away. That's what we did. And we gained I think we gained a lot by running them in parallel and building that infrastructure, building those bots at the same time while we're building the infrastructure. Okay? Over here first.
You talked a little bit about the importance of training everybody to make sure they're kind of up and running. How long does that usually take to get either a business user or a developer kind of fully on board and, you know, comfortable with the system?
Weeks, because like any training, you have the training. It's not hard to figure that out, but really you're not fully on board until you start doing it, right? So I would say after 1 or 2 bots under their hands, under tutelage of someone else, they're good. They're good. To me, you know, I'm an ex-Navy guy, so training's always big, and you get the formal training, you get the experience, but then the interaction. And so the interaction with the customer, the interaction with other developers gets that experience, which gets you to the next levels. So the training, the hands-on, and then experience all couple in. But training and hands-on, I'd say a month or 2 tops. Full-time. So we don't have part-timers. We got full-timers. Yes, sir. And we'll go over here.
Real quick, 200 hours to build a bot. Can you break it down, generally speaking, how much time is focused on developing the process, documenting the process, understanding what the customer wants, and how much time is actually dedicated to building the bot itself?
No, I
Generally,
can't. Generally, I will. I'll give it a shot. You know, because I asked them to give me how long can it take from an ROI perspective, you know, so I can say, hey, you want me to build a bot? This is what's going to cost, 200 hours. So I would say it's probably along the line like 10 hours for design, maybe 20, depending upon how clean the process is when they walk in. And I would say probably about more than 60%, probably I would guess, is develop and building the actual bot itself. And then the rest is the testing.
And then just real quick on a follow-up from a training perspective, following up to his question, when you have this much time dedicated to business process identification, business process understanding, are you finding training requirements are expanding to help folks understand how to map out a business process as opposed to actually just building the bots themselves? Are you starting to see that demand come?
That's a good question. You know, it depends upon the maturity of your processes at your organization. And so I would say yes or no. With this group over here, mature processes? No. With this group over here, right now there's an issue we're trying to face, and I'm raising my hand saying, to the director of DLA, I can't do that because their process isn't clean, and they have to fix that. So I think that answer, but it just depends upon the process. And yes, that is a big issue. If they don't have a clean process, what can we do? Right? Yes, sir.
How did you start your implementation of this? Did you use a systems integrator to help you along? And that's the first question. And the second question would be, once you started in production, how do you monitor and maintain the bots going forward?
So we have system integrators. I don't actually like that term because systems integrators to me are, I'm going to give you a task, you're going to run it. I'm the program manager. So I brought these contractors in as part of my team. And so we use them in that way, and we're all one big team. But I'm the program manager, so we didn't pass off that responsibility. Okay. And orchestrator manages it. Okay, manages it. So we have, you know, here's something that we haven't really talked about here yet, but you need an operations center when you have a lot of bots. You build the bots, you release them, they go to production, you need someone to manage it, that operations center. They run orchestrator. What if it breaks? Why does it break? You need to troubleshoot it. The bot's probably not going to break. It's going to be that system that you connected to that they changed the URL site to. or they decided to release Windows, Internet Explorer 15, and they forgot to tell you, so now you have to redesign your bots to make it work with 15. So that's what we call the RPA Operations Center, or the ROC, which we're maturing. It's brand new for us. But they're managing and making sure, hey, customer, you think your bot's running every night? Well, we're making sure it's running every night. Yeah. And then as we go for, next year, we'll be able to talk about that a lot more. Now it's just brand new. It's just concept. Okay. Ma'am, you had a question.
And do any of those processes enter financial transactions? And have you gone through a financial audit? And were there any implications or any lessons learned from that?
So, yes. But we haven't gone through a financial audit because it's the process, and all we're doing is repeating the process. So we need to talk to the auditors to make sure they're okay with that, but we're just repeating the same process. So it's not new. It shouldn't be new from an auditor's perspective. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Processes that enter financial transactions into your financial system that has been audited.
We have, Chair, do we actually have ones that enter transactions? Yeah, we do, right? Okay. And the reason I'm hesitant there, because I know if you're from finance, that means very specific thing to you. And I don't want to be very specific there, because I know we enter things into financial systems, okay? And I believe we enter some financial transactions, and I know we will in the future.
Has that data set been audited, and were there any audit implications from that?
No, because there's no audit implications, because the process has already been audited, and we're just repeating the process. So instead of John doing the process, the bot does the process. So we're communicating with auditors, yes, but there's no need to re-audit the process.
The financial
Yes, it
auditors.
has.
Okay.
Yes. DLA had finished our audit 6 months, a year ago. We were the first ones out of the gate with the DoD audit.
Any special audit considerations related to that were different from other types of audit findings, or did they ask any specific questions about how you're set up or anything like that?
No, we haven't gone into that depth, because we're just repeating the process. Now, the interesting part is there's audit findings that we're looking at answering with bots, which are new processes. And then once we get those answers, we need to go to auditors and say, hey, does this answer the mail? Does this answer that finding? So that's a very good question. We're just in the mix of all that, right? I mean, we're a little bit more mature than some, but we're still working through all that. Mm-hmm. But we understand that we need to work through that. Yeah. Yes, sir.
All those collections, you have files and, coming from endpoint, either users or somebody's feeding them. We work in the lab end-to-end solutions providing to IoT services. And one of the key things that we see as a challenge, the sensors data is not picking up, or there's a broke down process in between. Are you having open connections to outsiders, any sensor data coming in to bot to do the process, or you haven't thought of those kind of things yet?
No, we're not going outsiders. Need to define that term, right? So outsiders to us is outside of our normal DoD base. We're not going to vendors right now, which would be commercial organizations. But we intend to, and we don't see much of an issue here, because those endpoints are the same security that they are today. In fact, I put forward to my security folks saying, I'm more vulnerable with this endpoint with my CAT card than the bot, which is internal. It doesn't even have an endpoint that you can access from the outside. So we're seeing the data and actually the security piece, I think, is more secure and more reliable. The issue is, though, when they do break for some reason other than the bot, that's where Orchestrator and our RPA Operations Center monitors that, recognizes why the bot didn't run, checks to make sure, okay, is the system down? Bot may be up, but the system is trying to connect is down. And then waiting for that to come back up. Did that answer it? Yep, okay. Go ahead, sir, back there.
Speaking of audit changes or audit findings and back to regulatory changes to processes, do you have the ability to rewrite scripts or change the process that you've already created?
So I don't like to create the process. I want the customer to create the process, and sometimes they create it with us because they improve it. Right? Turn around. Oh, so if there's a change to the process,
Yes.
then we have to go back and change our design document and probably change the bot. So it would be a modification to the bot. No, and we're expecting that. We're expecting to, either change the process or change a regulatory change that creates a change to the process. We know we're going to have to go back and make sure that works or modify it. And we have a system in place that we would go back to the original design and just do a redesign with the customer. Okay, good. That's a good question. Thank you. Okay, I'm getting the. How about one last? You always get one last question. Anybody? Yes, sir.
So I really like that line of questioning around basically turnaround. So do you guys have a risk kind of factor or mitigation for if we implement this process for this, if we implement a bot for this process and there's either legal or regulatory change, there's a 2 week, 1 week, 1 day turnaround process to rewrite the bot. Do you guys factor that in the process and examining the process for a new bot?
No, we don't, because the reason we don't have to is this is an 8-week process from beginning to end. If we're going to modify it, we could get it done in a week, right? Because that's the thing, it's different. It's 8 weeks. And to be honest, it's shorter than 8 weeks, But it's so short that we can respond to that, and then obviously if it's a priority, well, then it moves to the top of the list.